detail. And apologies for the if there's the examples are a bit basic, but I want to give you an idea of the kind of things that we do without bamboozling people with equations. I'm very happy to go into details and specifics afterwards, but if you want heavy math talk for equations, probably not the talk. So yeah, as Paul says, my name is Tyrone Rees. I lead the computational maths theme, and yeah, here's my vision for the theme, what I'd like the computational maths theme to be. So I guess to be recognized as world leaders in the areas of computational maths used across STFC. So for that, I need you guys that work in STFC to tell me what kind of computational maths that you need so that we can build expertise in those areas. Positioning ourselves as essential partners within the UK digital research infrastructure ecosystem and beyond, connecting researchers and innovators to the mathematical software they need to carry out the most ambitious and creative research. So you guys in the facilities will be experts at whatever you do. That probably isn't computational maths, but you probably, I guess the fact that you're listening to this talk probably means that you have problems that mathematical algorithms will help solve. We want to make sure that you use the best algorithms that you can without sucking all your time doing stuff that you're not an expert doing. So that's not necessarily that we'll develop all the algorithms you're going to use, or you have to use algorithms that we develop, but hopefully we'll be able to connect you with what algorithms are out there. Here's a cartoon of the theme. So we're a research. Everything starts on the whiteboard with research. We prove things, develop algorithms, prove things about them. It never ends in research. It don't exist just to prove theorems. The research leads to mathematical software. So we develop mathematical software, which then gets used widely across the world, but particularly what the hope is within the UK, the facilities, the people who need to use mathematical software here. And then the dream is that the people around here tell us where existing mathematical software doesn't meet their needs, and then that drives the future research. And we have this nice virtuous circle going through that we're developing research that people, developing methods that people need here, which results in software that then gets used here and more widely. And then our funding sources, it's worth noting that we don't get any core funding for doing this, so everything needs to be funded by projects. We have a number of grants, mostly by EPSRC. We have an Excalibur grant that's just come to the end. There could be European funding, and this could be jointly with people that work in the UK digital research infrastructure ecosystem. Our software, our linear algebra software in particular, we sell software licenses for it, so it's completely free for academics. But if you want it commercialized, we sell licenses, and we've sold licenses in the last year to Formula One teams, to banks for autonomous cars, oil and gas, robots, defense, and there's a sugar refining plant there. We've got sugar industry use our license, and chemical processing. These are the kind of industries that use our software. And then support from schemes like the Lovelace Centre while we're here today, and COSAC. So this is our the mission of our group in a picture. And then yeah, so who we are, of course, the theme of the group isn't just me. So we're just being established as a theme within scientific computing, and there'll be, at least to start with, 3 groups under there. So there are 2 more research-oriented groups and a software-oriented group. Not that people who are in this group don't do research, and the people in the research groups all do software. So that there's not it's not a clear cut between research and software. There is a numerical linear algebra group, a continuous optimization group, and a mathematical research software engineering group. And yeah, these 2 are more researchy. Here's the software, and this includes people that we've made offers to that will be joining us in the next couple of months. But here's the body of people that we have available to call on for work here. We've also got emeritus researchers, Ian Duff and John Reed, who are former leaders of the computational maths group or the numerical analysis group, who are still around in a wealth of knowledge. And we often host visitors. There's Andreas Bock from TTU, who's literally just gone back to Denmark. And there's Lorenzo Lanslow, who's a PhD student directly funded by the ALC PhD studentship program from Oxford, who spent some time here as well. So this is what we have to draw on. Might ask what kind of research we do. Here's a word cloud of the papers that we've published in the past 5 years. I took the titles of those papers and the keywords of those papers. And these are the things that comes out. So there's linear systems, preconditioning, domain decomposition, least squares, Helmholtz, constrained optimization, finite element, incomplete factorization, so all these things. And if you don't know what these means, we'll touch on some of these. There's a wide range of topics that we're interested in. And of course, we don't just work, we're really a small part. We have a lot of collaborators across the world. So when you talk to us, it's not really just our expertise you're pulling on, it's all the people we work with and the people who work with the people we work with. So they're quite well connected. We've got collaborators across the UK, Bath, Oxford, Edinburgh, Strathclyde, and across Europe and across the US and Australia and places. So we cover, have a lot of collaborations. And again, it's not just theory, it's not just writing papers that we do. So here's the ACM Transactions on Mathematical Software, one of the journals that covers mathematical software. If you look who's most published in there, the most frequent affiliations, our group is number 4th in the list here. So we're behind Algon, University of Texas at Austin, and Sandia. And then there's our group, and then people like the Bell Labs, Lawrence Berkeley, other places for writing software are below us. We're one of the most prolific outputters of mathematical software that's out there. So that's a broad introduction. Now I'm going to delve into a bit more detail. I should say, if anyone has any questions at any point, just stop, and I'm happy to, don't wait till the end if something's burning, just stop and ask. So in numerical linear algebra, we do a lot of numerical linear algebra. I'm going to focus on one part that kind of illustrates well the benefits that thinking mathematically about things can do. So start with linear systems. So as I said, I'm going to start basic so that we don't lose anyone. So you might have seen a problem like this if you search on social media. This is the kind of thing that comes up lots. So say you send 3 people into Tesco's with a basket and you ask them to buy apples, oranges, and bananas. The first person buys 10 apples, 4 packs of oranges, and 2 packs of bananas, and it comes to £12.50. Second person buys 7 packs of apples, 5 packs of oranges, and 1 pack of bananas, come to £10.55. And the third person buys this. How much is a pack of apples? How much is a pack of oranges? And how much is a pack of bananas? So here's a basic simultaneous equation that's the bread and butter of the kind of things that we work on. And of course, you can write, if you remember your A-level maths, you can write this as a matrix equation. So here were the quantities of the apples, oranges, and bananas. Here's the prices, and you solve a matrix times a vector is equal to a vector. So here's the unknown vector of the prices. And of course, we're not really interested in apples and bananas and stuff, so we can put x1, x2, and x3 in there, and we can put A1, A2, whatever for the entries of the variables. And of course, we're not really interested in 3x3 systems. We're interested in really, really large systems that are millions by millions big. So if we have a linear system like this and you solve it, you can solve the algorithms like Gaussian elimination that you learned in school. Then here's one example of these problems, a 2D finite element discretization of a Poisson problem. So this gives you, to solve this, you have to solve a matrix. As the number of unknowns increases, the solution time increases, and you can stare at that for a bit, and you can, this is as if this is n, this increases as n cubed. So it's a cubic complexity algorithm. So if you the size of your problem increases by a factor of 10, the time to solve it will increase by not 10, not 100, but 1,000. Okay, but there's something about the problems that we were interested in that I haven't said, and that's that these problems are sparse. So we're not interested in just apples, oranges, and bananas, but we might be interested in like everything that's in Tesco's. So if someone goes shopping in Tesco's, they're going to have a basket. They're not going to buy one of everything in the store. There might be millions of products in the store, but any one person going in is only going to buy maybe 100 products of those millions, or maybe 10 products of those millions. But if there are 1 million products in the store and 1 million people go in and everyone buys at least one of if everything in the store is bought at least once, then you can find out exactly how much all the prices are. So the fact we have sparsity, that not every row contains every entry is important. You exploit that algorithmically. And so in general, you don't want to, you want to store these matrices in a format that doesn't have the zeros. You never store the zeros. And then you can look and, well, this sparse matrix is equivalent to a graph. So here's a graph. Oh, here's a graph. Here's a sparse matrix. And you can see there's in this graph, there's a line in between node 1 and 4. So there's an entry in the 1, 4 entry here. And same, there's an entry in 4, 2. So there's a line between 4, 2. There's not a line between 3 and 4. And so there's a gap in that sparse matrix. And so when you have this equivalence between sparse matrices and graphs, and you can do the same for non-symmetric matrices and everything, then you can use graph algorithms to develop good methods for solving sparse linear systems. So here's our example we had before. If we treat it as a dense matrix, we had an order n cubed algorithm. If you solve the same problem using a sparse direct method, you have this line here, which you can solve much larger problems. The number of unknowns stops there. So you get by taking advantage of the structure of the problem, you can have a much better, lower complexity algorithm that allows you to solve much bigger problems. So this is order n to the 3/2, this algorithm here. And we have a lot of software for solving this. So this is a page from the HSL. HSL is our main software library for linear algebra problems. And each of these is a different solver for solving a different type of sparse matrix with different structure. So some of these might be for symmetric sparse matrices, some are for unsymmetric, some are for symmetric with positive eigenvalues. If you know something about your system, you can choose problems that will work better. And we have so this is the library that is free for academics, but commercially we charge for it to be used commercially. There's a fully open source library that we have as well. And then just say there's some books that have been written by people within my group. If you want to delve in, there's 2 textbooks that have been written that explains all about how these things work under the hood. And the software that we develop is world leading in this field. So here's a paper that came out a few years ago from some researchers at Los Alamos, University of Michigan, Northwestern, and Sandia. And these are comparing linear solvers that are available in the optimization package IPOpt. And so the ones that are in pink are ones that we've developed in our group. And then there's some others, NUMS is from France, Pardis is from Switzerland, and WSMP is from IBM. So they compare the different solvers here, and here's the summary. So that they separate the problems into easy problems or difficult problems, and difficult meaning they're finite element optimization problems. And they choose between the best license solver and the best free solvers. And we're in 3 of these 4, they recommend our solvers as being the best. And so we've got a target to get this spot here, but in most cases, we do well. So solving linear systems, there are 2 paradigms we can use. So far we've talked about what's called direct methods. So that's your Gaussian elimination that you learned in school. There's also iterative methods that you can use. So there's a kind of a fundamental change in paradigm between these two methods. So direct methods, you set your algorithm running, you wait for some time, which is order m cubed for a direct method, and then you get the answer to the accuracy of the machine precision at the end. Iterative methods, you start at some starting guess, and you get successive better and better and better approximations to your solution. So you eventually get to machine precision. And of course, depending on what algorithm you use, the cutoff point, it might take longer to get here, or you might only be interested in 3 digits of accuracy. That's enough for you, and therefore you can stop much sooner. But there's a different paradigm here. And so here's the problem that I showed earlier, the Poisson equation, discretized Poisson equation. Here's the convergence curve of, so this is an iterative method known as conjugate gradient, the Cryo subspace method. If I'm solving x equals b, here's the convergence curve here. So it takes maybe 2,500 iterations. And you can use a technique called preconditioning to change your problem. So we wanted to solve ax equals b, we can change our problem to solve p inverse ax equals p inverse b. So there are p inverse a has better convergent properties. So here, when you do this, we get much faster convergence. You can zoom in there. This takes 8 iterations as opposed to our 2,700 iterations. Now, each one of these iterations is probably going to be, well, it's definitely going to be more expensive than one of these. But the game of preconditioning is, can you make it so that the wall clock time to do this is much faster than the wall clock time to do this? And usually you can. And again, in the HSL library, we have a lot of software available for doing this, both for some of these like SimBK, GMRes, BiCG Stab, multi-precondition GMRes. These are all Krylov methods, so they're methods, iterative methods for solving linear systems. And some of these are preconditioners. So we've got a multi-grid preconditioner, we've got incomplete factorization preconditioners, so lots of different preconditioners you can use. Just to see how this works, here's the picture we saw before with the dense n-cubed method, the sparse direct n to the power of 3/2 method. If we have a solve, here's an unpreconditioned iterative method. This is order n squared, so it's better than using the direct method, the dense method, but it's still not very good. And if you use a preconditioned, an optimal preconditioner, you can get it. So it's a little bit worse for the 2-dimensional problem than the sparse direct method, but it's roughly the same. So I can zoom these in, and again, you can see how these are. You can nicely scale up your problem to be larger. So when we're dealing with more data, if we want to solve problems that are 10 times, 100 times bigger, the order n cube methods are never going to work. But these, if you take into account the structure, you can scale that up nicely. This is a 2-dimensional finite element problem. If I change it to a 3-dimensional finite element problem, the complexity of the sparse direct method turns to order n squared instead of into the 3/2. This still scales like order n in this case. So as the bandwidth of the matrix gets larger, it's better to use iterative methods. So these are things that you could muddle around for ages if you didn't know this, but these are things that we've worked on for a long time. And just to show an example that we've worked on where this works, here's an example of flow control. So here's a solution of Stokes' equation. So it's a lid-driven cavity flow. So if there's a cavity, you drive a lid across here, and you get a circulation in the streamlines and some recirculation in the corners. Here's the streamlines. Here's the pressure. So you get these peaks in the corners. And what if we wanted to use a forcing term to change the streamline? So instead of having this and the recirculation in the corners, what if we wanted a nice smooth flow? How can you change the PD to have a forcing term to do that? So you can formulate that as a PD constraint optimization problem. So here's your actual solutions of your velocity and your pressure. Here's your desired streamlines, your velocity, your desired pressure. Here's the constraint that Stokes equation with maybe some bound constraints on it. Then solving this problem, the hard part of this is solving a linear system, and then we've developed preconditions here so you can solve the hard part of this problem in order n square, order n time. So if you solve the problem 100 times bigger, it'll take you 100 times as long. And we've recently been working with the guys at Cullen at CCFE on their modeling the tokamak as part of the Excalibur project. So they're working on the modeling the scrape-off layer in the Neptune neutrals and plasma turbulence numerics project. And yeah, so this is what one of their goals there was to co-design with experts, and they wanted to work with numerical analysts to assist in the solution of the resulting large systems equations, specifically in matrix preconditioning. So we worked with these guys and showed them where we could help them or what they should be using for their particular needs and when modeling a tokamak. So I highlighted on solving linear systems because yeah, that's where a large part of our research has gone recently, but it also tells a good story from if you didn't know very much, then you could easily use a naive algorithm that doesn't scale at all. But the more you understand the structure, the more you can develop an algorithm that's order n instead of order n cubed that you might naively use. But we do, that's not all the linear algebra we do in the group. So I'm not going to talk in detail about any of these, but just to mention, people who work on tensor methods, people who work on linearly squares. So instead of solving square systems, if you have tall and skinny matrices that you need to solve, or short and fat matrices, we have people who work on that. Singular value decomposition. So our student that works with us and the University of Oxford that's funded by the ALC is working on randomized methods of singular decomposition, singular value decompositions in PCA. We solve eigenvalue problems. We do some model order reduction and working on functions of matrices. So if you want to calculate an exponential of a matrix or log of a matrix or sine of a matrix, then evaluating those efficiently. So that's linear algebra. Do you have any questions on linear algebra before I move on to continuous optimization?
So basically saying, I mean, there's linear algebra is hidden in a lot of things that we might not suspect it's hidden in. I mean, I can think of a few things, but I guess this has revealed more to me than I suspected actually. So it's what computational fluid dynamics actually is learning.
Yes.
Which I hadn't suspected.
Yes.
Or at least I should have if I thought about it. But
yes. Usually, yeah, the bottleneck of most, certainly in PD discretizations and things, it's solving a linear system.
Yeah, it's the discretization, isn't it, that transforms it into such a problem. Okay.
A little bit to follow. How do you bridge the gap there? So you had that very nice physics problem.
Yeah.
Did you have informed people come to you say we're solving a linear problem, but it's just taking too long? You know, in the case of the facilities where they're probably not aware
Yes.
that a linear solver could do it. How do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's case by case. Absolutely, it's looking at what is the bottleneck in a piece of software that someone's so what's taking all the time, and identifying where that is and what that part of the code is doing, and then is there something better you could use? Yeah, certainly what we did with the people at Cullen, where they had their software, then you go in, you look at the code, you're like, oh, okay, you're using this algorithm here, which they didn't develop, right? They just pulled in from somewhere else. And then we can pull this out, put something else in, and it'll be either much better for what they want to solve now or better in the future for they know what they're aiming for. Variables all aiming for exascale. And can you, the software you have in place now might work well for you now, but in 5 years' time, where you want to solve problems that are 10, 100 times bigger than the ones you're solving now, it doesn't scale, so you're never going to do that. Okay, so let's go on to another area where linear algebra is lurking everywhere you look. So continuous optimization is the other big part of our group. So again, I'll start with a cartoon just so we all know what we're talking about. Suppose now I'm challenged with buying fruit for my maybe the attendees of this talk or something. So I want to go and I want to spend the minimum amount of money possible. So I know how much my apples, my oranges, and my bananas are. So that was 65 pence a pound and a pound if anyone had solved the problem. And I want to spend the minimum amount of money possible. But of course, the minimum is 0. So I'm going to put some constraints on it because I need stuff to be there. So I know the apples are in packs of 6, the oranges are in packs of 3, and the bananas are in packs of 5. So I want to have at least 70 pieces of fruit. So I want the number of these things to be at least 70. Everyone likes apples, so I want to buy at least 8 packs of apples because I think apples are the favorites. Oranges are messy, and you make an orange and it comes to a mess. I'm going to predict that people don't really want to eat too many oranges in a meeting, so I'm going to have at most 3 oranges. Then I'm going to switch this. I want the equality to look the right way, so I'm going to switch the sign on this. And then I'm going to remember what I did with the linear algebra earlier. And I can write this as a matrix inequality. So I've got a minimization problem subject to a matrix inequality. So I can write this subject to B times X is greater than G. And again, the work in here, most of the work is solving a series of matrix problems where you have the constraint matrix, you have the transpose here, and you have something on the 1-1 block here. So if you want to solve this, if you can solve this efficiently, then that makes the optimization easy. And yeah, we don't deal with such a simple cost function as we had there. We'll have some possibly complicated nonlinear cost function, and then the 1-1 block is some function of the Hessian of this function, but still with a constraint. And we have software for this, so we have the Galahad library. This is all written in modern Fortran, but it's got C, Python, and Julia interfaces to there. And there's the Optrove, so Galahad's part of this. We also have a Qtest testing environment, which is the kind of industry standard for testing optimization codes. There's the SIF test collection and various other bits of software. And again, we don't just write the software, there's the textbooks that people, well, Nick in this case in our group, has produced on trust ratio methods, one method for solving optimization problems where you build a model of your optimization and you say you trust that model in a certain radius of that problem, a certain ball of that problem, and that ball grows or shrinks as you get closer to convergence. And there's also a recent book on the evaluation complexity of algorithms for non-convex optimization. So optimization is the other part of our what we do. Give an example of where we've worked with people in facilities on this. So here's a nonlinear least squares problem. So now where our cost function, you could have constraints. This particular problem didn't have constraints, but we want to minimize a sum of squares. So a least squares, you want to fit the data. So here's a problem that Anders Magvardsson in ISIS came to us a good few years ago now. They had imanted, here's some data that came from Servio in ISIS. Imanted implemented the GNU scientific library, the Lemberg-Marquardt implementation in GSL, and GSL would give this as the fit into this data. So there are 2 peaks, I think they were trying to fit in here, and this is the fit that was coming out of GSL, which obviously doesn't look like a very good fit at all. So Anders came to us and can you give us a method that works better, that solves these problems? And so we developed some software that makes better use of the derivatives that they had available, and we called it RAMFit, and that gives you a nice fit that goes through the data, which works here.
Is that using analytic derivatives or?
Yeah, I mean, it can use both, but it's, yeah, it works best if you use analytic derivatives. It'll also work for approximate derivatives as well. But it does require, you've got to, there's an assumption that the derivative is a good derivative. So if you've got very noisy functions, and
yeah.
But yeah, RALFit, we wrote it for people in ISIS, but it's an open source software package. It's written in Fortran, but there's Python and C interfaces that you can use. So here's the description of it. And so NAG, the Numerical Algorithms Group, is a company just in Oxford that produce a software library. They've picked up RALFit and integrated into them, so they now market it as part of the NAG library. So you can pay to use it through them, but you can use it completely open source from us. But that's their model. So here's their press release about the faster data fitted solver that it says new solvers stems from a collaboration with the Rutherford Acton Lab. And yeah, so here's what they said. They called it, they're almost as bad as we are with our naming things, all the MEs here. They have EO4GG is the name of the solver they give it. It offers unprecedented robustness and a significant speed up over current alternatives in the library. And you are highly recommended to upgrade to the new solver. So they were very grateful that we produced this and took it, and it's better than the alternatives that they had out there. And we're currently talking with chip vendors that want to make this available in their optimized scientific library that comes with certain chips. So that was solving a non-linear squares problem, data fitting problem. Another problem we've had recently that ALC funded a few years ago, or still funded actually, is a global optimization for non-linear squares. So here's some crystal field fitting. So someone came to us from ISIS and said how here's a data set that comes out. There is an expert who can tell you the starting parameters, where if you put those starting parameters in, then it'll converge to it'll fit it exactly. So this is a good fit. Here is a fit where if you perturb the expert supplied starting parameters by, I think this is something like 10 to the minus 4, so a very small amount, perturbed by a little amount, the same algorithm doesn't converge to the solution. So there's a bottleneck of a person who needs to say, you need to start at this point. If you do that, it all works well. If you start at a different point that might be just perturbed slightly, it converges to a local minimum, which isn't the minimum that's interested. So it's a highly, there's lots of local minimum in this problem. So what you really want is a global minimum, not a local minimum like RALFit would guarantee to find you. And Yari, Nick, and Megan, who were in my group, developed a global optimization algorithm for these squares, specifically targeted for these squares problems. And here's a table that they've got. So these are the algorithms that are currently mounted. This is the value of the cost function that's found at convergence. So these are the algorithms in GSL. This is the RALFit algorithm that we talked about earlier. And here's the global optimization algorithms. The lighter colors are a smaller number. And so the global, so the 5 examples that they tested this on, unsurprisingly, the global optimization algorithm, it takes more time to run, but it doesn't require someone to give you an exact starting guess or a good starting guess that will converge to the right solution. Now I believe this is what the people who do crystal field fitting use within Manted now. And of course, again, we wrote it for people in ISIS, but it's publicly available, and there's an open source code. This one's written in C++ that has Python interfaces called GoFit that's available. You can pip install GoFit and it'll work. the table that we showed there, so this from kind of proof of concept, from initial problem being given to us to a developed solver, probably took 9 months with someone not full-time working on it. And one of the reasons we could do this is because we have this piece of software that's also been funded by ARC called fit benchmarking. And this started way back with the initial problem with Anders came to us in ISIS. When we gave them RALFit, they reasonably said, well, how do we know this is better than what we're currently using for, you've shown us on these like handful of problems we give you, but how can we be sure that this is better across everything? So we, well, the Manted guys developed the precursor to fit benchmarking, where you could give it a set of problems and then it would test accuracy, runtime, and maybe some other metrics for these things. So originally it was Manted against RALFit and GSL. And then we realized, well, there's nothing specific to Manted for these. This is something that could be useful across the board. So here is the dream is to be able to interface any data fitting software. So these are all mostly, well, optimization problems. So some of them are non-least squares problems. Some are Monte Carlo methods. Some of them just do optimization, general optimization. So any data fitting software to any source of test problems. So you can take the data, you're not redefining, you're not writing your own algorithms, re-implementing stuff that people have told you. You're actually taking the data from these scientific analysis methods and then squirting it straight into maybe a non-linearly squared solver so that you can see how different methods compare without going into the effort of messing around in the source code of these things for something that may not be worth doing. So these are things that are either already implemented or are in the pipeline of being implemented. So I think you can get Manted, SASView, and QTIS. There's a set of test problems. The NIST test set. There's Horace and SpinW are in there. And then I think Hogben and the scans from StressMap are in the pipeline that I think there's. Maybe Hogben is in now, and there's a pull request ready to go in there. And all these from there's 3 or 4 different methods you can use within MATLAB, and so testing that by itself is just interesting to do. There's Facebook's Theseus solver, there's Google's Saris solver, there's the algorithms from NAG, there's some derivative-free algorithms, all sorts of different things. And yeah, similar to the linear algebra case. There are examples that all of these, there'll be a problem that any one of these is best for, but you don't necessarily know which one is best for your problems. So when you run fit benchmarking on a test set, so here's some test sets, I think these came from ISIS, and then here's a load of different solvers along here. So this is a comparison. So the top color in each of these boxes is the value of your cost function. The bottom color is the runtime, and lighter is better. So if you look, here's the interesting case here, Levmar. The bottom is light, so they're very fast, but they have a relatively dark top. So they're very fast, but they give you the wrong answer very quickly. If you click through any of these boxes, it gives you more information. You can see, well, this is the data. The blue dotted line is the best fit. The green line is the fit that you got there, which doesn't fit the data at all. So it's very fast, but it's very fast to give you the wrong answer. And there's no little flags there, so it doesn't tell you it's giving you the wrong answer. So that's useful to know. That's not very robust on this test set. If you click through on the end, it'll give you a view of all the problems that you've tested. And you can see in dark is the best, and you can see all the different ones there. And if you do this live, there's lots of interactivity with the graphics, and you can see better what things are. And we provide things like performance profiles as well, where you can see, so the solver in the top left is better And this is a slightly older version of fit benchmark. The new versions are, yeah, as I say, more interactive. You can remove and add things in here. So it's a good way to fit benchmark. We found really useful to be able to get a handle on people's real data and rapidly prototype and maybe for people outside our group to see what their if their methods are well suited for people in the facilities without having to do a lot of work on it. So other work that we're doing, we're working with the cryo-EM team, so the cryo electron microscopy people. And the workflow there, I don't know if it comes up very good on the slide, but so here's when you do cryo-EM, you get videos. This is one frame of a video, and in here there are a load of particles, believe it or not. And so we're going there. We go from there to pick in individual particles. I don't know if you can see, it comes up better on the laptop than it does on the screen, of course, but if you squint, in here there are some particles. You need to then go from the noisy data here to the actually identifying the particles and align them. This is a video, things will be moving, so you need to make sure they have the right alignment. And then from there, you can reconstruct what's in the sample. So at the moment, standard practice is to compute these FSC curves, the Fourier shell correlation curves. So you take throw away half your data and use that as a kind of a test set, and then compare it against the other half. So you're throwing away half your samples, but then you can compute these curves. One means that it's real, you've really got something, and 0 means it's noise. And at some points, if you look at this red curve, you can see at the value of 0.4, anything below or anything higher than that resolution isn't real. It's noise. So you can. This is a way to do that, but you have to throw away lots of your data to do that. So part of this project, then you come up with a better algorithm using cross-validation that you don't have to waste half of your data to be able to identify when you're not overfit into noise. And then the last example I want to talk about is tychography, as Paul mentioned earlier. I've been talking and working with the guys at Diamond for a while. So tychography is this technique where you have a sample, you fire a probe at the sample over a sequence. So there's a scan pattern with overlapping intensities through here, and then you collect a set of diffraction intensities at the other end, and you can use this to reconstruct an image of whatever's in the sample there. So one way you can, so you want to reconstruct the object. So here, this is, if you know any image processing, there's cameraman, a toy example in here. As you go through the pattern, you can reconstruct it there, but you also want to reconstruct the probe, the light source that's been shined in. So you want to minimize. One way, there are many ways, many cost functions you can do. One way to do this is just minimize the J objects and the probe over a sum of squares, some non-linearly squares problems, and you kind of minimize the mismatch there. So a standard technique that people use in tychography is EPI, and we were looking at, can you use other methods from optimization in here to get a better reconstruction. So it's really instructive from our point of view project to work on as well. There's so it turns out that EPI is very, very good at reconstructing. If you don't know where your probe is, EPI is very good at getting a good idea of what the probe is, whereas the standard optimization algorithms aren't so good. But if we use EPI for the first 50 iterations, and then switch to using some standard optimizations like nonlinear conjugate gradients or limited memory BFGS, the two optimization algorithms, then you can get much better reconstruction of your solution in some cases. Here's an example of typography done on graphene. Here's the probe that's reconstructed, and you can see here the amplitude. So there's a mask across and here you can see the possibly you can see on on this image that you get a less blurry and better reconstruction to use if you switch from using EPI to the other optimization methods. And we've been using other. So we've been talking about fixed sample typography, where there's PDEs that need to be solved, taking us back to solving your linear systems. If you can do that fast and efficiently, that becomes an efficient method you can do. And we've done some other stuff in typography where you maybe using completion methods to reconstruct, so you don't have to take so many data samples. So that's a whistle-stop tour of what the things we're interested in the theme. As I said, there's no details anyway here, and I'm very happy to answer questions or chat longer about things. Yeah, I guess my fundamental take home is that yesterday's algorithms aren't going to be able to analyze tomorrow's data. We're building bigger and bigger facilities that collect more and more data, and the size of the problems we want to solve is larger and larger, and we want to do it quicker and quicker. Using yesterday's algorithms aren't going to be good enough. So we need to be constantly reevaluating what we need and what we are, even just making better use of what's out there now. There's lots of stuff that's been developed in the last 5 to 10 years, which possibly hasn't made it through to the people on the ground at our facilities. So we have existing, as I've talked about, existing expertise in numerical linear algebra and optimization, but we're well connected in other areas of computational maths too. So even if your problem isn't in these areas, it's likely that we'll know people who can help you out. And yeah, if you're interested in looking at any more stuff, there's links. I think the slides will be available, so you can click through to these. Links to our linear algebra software, HSL and Sproul, and our optimization software. So our probe has links to Galahad and Cutis and everything. RALFit, GoFit, and Fit benchmarking. And you can find more about the group at the numerical.rl.ac.uk webpage. So thank you very much for listening. And,
okay, thank you.
All right.